And also because it is a difficult issue, there are many different views on emptiness, on what is precisely the ultimate view of emptiness within Buddhism, among different Buddhist schools, whether it's Theravada or Zen or Tibetan Buddhism, and even within Tibetan Buddhism, whether it's Nyingma, Kagyu, Sakya, Gelug, and then even, within the schools, different scholars have slightly different views on different points of emptiness. Um, so generally, I was reminded when I was looking through the slides this morning, I mean, as a kind of good student of Gelugpa Buddhism, I generally try to follow Lama Tsongkhapa's views, but even in the Gelugpa, there's different interpretations of Tsongkhapa. But for this, I base the outlines mainly on the way Lama Tsongkhapa presents emptiness in the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. Anyway, we'll come back to that though. But it is, and also, I mean, also, I think about my own, when I first started studying Buddhism, emptiness was something I really wasn't very interested in the first few years because I just felt like it was over my head. It was very difficult. Although, yeah, especially I remember attending a teaching by His Holiness the Dalai Lama on the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment by Tsongkhapa in 2001. Um, and half of that treatise is about emptiness. So it was about 5 days. His Holiness was explaining emptiness, and I was so frustrated because I could understand almost nothing now, and it was really difficult to sit there through long days of explanation, feeling like lost, day after day. Um, yeah. So, but because of that, I also appreciate how important it is to try to explain things in a way that's clear and understandable for the audience. So I'll make every effort to do that. And emptiness, it is easy to get caught up in just a lot of intellectual discussion about emptiness, but it is something that we need to try to practice, that we need to try to learn how to, to meditate on and actually use our understanding of it when, when we need it, when our minds are kind of disturbed by afflictive emotions, basically. When we see our minds are disturbed by attachment or anger or selfish concern or fear, worry, um, because the meditation on emptiness is meant to be the universal antidote, whereas all the other antidotes like loving kindness, compassion, or patience, or contentment, um, or humility, they're antidotes to specific sets of afflictive emotions. Like loving kindness is an antidote to anger, but not to attachment, right? Contentment is an antidote to attachment, but not to anger. Humility is an antidote to pride, but not so much to attachment or anger, um, and so forth. So, whereas emptiness is a universal antidote, no? And I'll explain more about that why later. But it's meditation on emptiness is meant to serve us as a way to reduce all the different afflictive emotions. Um, so yeah, so I'll also, a focus of this, the way I'll present emptiness here is not only try to make it clear and simple and approachable, but also um, especially make sure you feel confident in knowing how to meditate on it and try to use it. Although, also looking at my own, reflecting my own personal, meditation on emptiness. Um, something I've done a lot, but it's still difficult. I still find it difficult to use as an antidote. It's not as easy to use as an antidote as, some others like loving kindness or, as an antidote for attachment, looking at the unpleasant aspects of the object or something like that. So it's not easy to use and meditate on emptiness. Although it differs for some, it differs among people. For some people it's easier, for some people it's more difficult, for some it comes more naturally. Um, but I can say at times when I've like really, especially in retreat, it's just easier to meditate on everything because your mind's not so distracted, and it's much easier to focus and kind of slow down and focus. And yeah, I can say, especially when I've had good conditions to meditate on emptiness, like I have found very very powerful and very helpful, in kind of a profound way that other antidotes really don't, because it is deeper. I mean, it is more profound, the idea of emptiness. And because I think it's more directly related to the idea of what am I as a person, right? Whereas the other antidotes are more related to, as a person, how do I relate to the other objects? How do I relate to this person I don't like? How do I relate to these kind of people I really like? How do I relate to this food? How do I relate to, my environment? Whereas emptiness is very much about like, what am I as a person, which is a much deeper kind of issue. And of course, independence upon our own ideas about what we are at a deeper level that affects how we relate to others, right? Yeah. So, okay, so today, since it's the beginning of this first session on emptiness, it's I think it's good to do a bit more extensive prayers, a bit more elaborate prayers at the beginning, in order to accumulate merit and purify obscurations and create connection with Shakyamuni Buddha, the teacher, the first teacher of emptiness in the world at this time, and all the lineage gurus and so forth. So I'll lead you in going through the traditional prayers before the teachings, and including the Heart Sutra, of course. Like the Heart Sutra is traditionally relied, and because the Heart Sutra is, the main sutras in which the Buddha taught about emptiness are called the Perfection of Wisdom sutras, because the perfection of wisdom essentially is a mind meditating on emptiness, right? So in the Perfection of Wisdom sutras, of which um, there's those of great length, a middling length, and very short length. The greatest length one, I think, is 350,000 verses, but it's been lost to the world. The next shorter one is 100,000 verse, Perfection of Wisdom, which exists still. It's commonly recited. It takes up 12 volumes. You know, um, and then there's, let's see, I think the next is the 25,000 verse, 17,000 verse. Oops, my Zoom cut off. Okay, I'm back on. Um, yeah, okay. So there's, yeah, 350,000, 100,000. Um, I think the next shorter is 25,000 and it's 17,000 verse. At Getomba, 8,000 verse, Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. And then, yeah, I don't remember all of them. There's like 17 different ones. But of those, one of the shortest is just the letter A. Ah, the letter A, because in Sanskrit, A is a negating particle, so it kind of means like just not. Shunyata is a synonym. I mean, is in Sanskrit usually I mean, it's a Sanskrit term that's translated as tomba or tomba ni in Tibetan. Yeah, tomba ni actually, and then emptiness in English. But shun means zero, but shunyata means like voidness or emptiness. But the letter ah, it symbolizes that. And then the next longer version is the mantra from the heart perfection. Yeah, from the heart sutra. Um, Dayada gade gade paragade parasam gade bodhisoha. Um, which I'll explain later. But then the third shortest version of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, you can say, is the Heart Sutra. Right? And that's commonly recited at the beginning of Buddhist teachings as a way to accumulate merit by reciting a sutra, and also to purify obscurations and obstacles to the teaching being completed, and to, the participants generating realizations. So it's important to do practices like that. At the monastery, it's like the two prayers we recite the most commonly, every day, pretty much, many times, and often many times in a day, are the Heart Sutra and the 20 praise to the 21 Taras. Right, those two. So yeah, so as part of the traditional teachings before the prayers, we'll recite the Heart Sutra. Okay, so let's go ahead. Just settle your mind and try to generate. Just, yeah, try to focus your attention for a minute first. Mm. And then, if you like, you can visualize Shakyamuni Buddha in the field of refuge in the space in front. And if you'd like to visualize more elaborately, or just imagine the presence of all the lineage gurus, it's very auspicious. So remember how Shakyamuni Buddha, at, at this time when Buddhism exists in the world, then the founding teacher of the teachings, the one who first turned the wheel of Dharma, Shakyamuni Buddha. And then his lineages of his teachings are passed down through Maitreya, and appearing as a bodhisattva. So the bodhisattva Maitreya, um, the, and then to Asanga, Arya Asanga, and Vasubandhu, and then other lineage masters of the, what is it, the extensive deeds lineage, but especially the view of emptiness. So the extensive deeds lineage contains more an elaborate explanation of the method side of the path, whereas the Bodhisattva Manjushri is also a direct disciple of Shakyamuni Buddha, and then from Manjushri to Nagarjuna, Aryadeva, Haribhadra, Chandakirti, and so forth, comes the lineage of the profound view, which is primarily to do with the wisdom side of the path, and so emptiness. So more significant for this module. But both of these lineages of teachings, they all come down, they meet in Lama Atisha, or Dipankara Srijnana, who was one of the most important teachers, Buddhist masters of ancient India to come to Tibet. And he spent the last 17 years or so of his life teaching throughout Tibet. And then from his disciples were passed down these teachings on um, um, both lineages, the lineage of extensive deeds and the lineage of the profound view. And then they both eventually came down to Lama Tsongkhapa, who was the founder of this Gelug school of Tibetan of Buddhism in Tibet, which is what the Inland Medicine Buddha and all of the other FPMT centers, most of the teachers who teach here, whether they're Tibetan or Westerners or so forth, then they're all primarily trained in the Gelugpa school of Tibetan Buddhism, but many also, as did Lama Zopa Rinpoche, study with masters and teachers from the other all the other traditions in Tibetan Buddhism. Okay, but to just imagine for now that all these lineage masters from Shakyamuni Buddha on down to our own teachers, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, are present in the space before us, and as we make these prayers, then from our heart, imagine and requesting them to bless us to develop understanding and insight and realization of all the aspects of the path, and especially the view of emptiness. Guru. And then also, maybe I'll add this. Also, it's excellent to, if you can visualize yourself surrounded by all sentient beings, beginning with your mother and father to your left and right, and then all your family and friends. to your left and right and behind you. And then imagine those whom you're most prone to become irritated or angry with, directly seated in front, facing towards you, to remind us to make special effort to practice in relation to them with patience. And then imagine all the other sentient beings, um, whether human beings, animals, hell beings, hungry ghosts, and so forth. Imagine all in human form, all seated around us as vast as space, and you can imagine them engaging in practice together with us. And so, especially think I'm engaging in this study of Buddhism in general, and especially emptiness in particular, not only to benefit myself, but to benefit countless other sentient beings, who are the source of all of my comfort and well being and happiness in this world. And so, by visualizing in this way, Shakyamuni Buddha and the lineage gurus, and then our own direct gurus in the space in front, and then all sentient, and requesting their blessing, and then all visualizing all sentient beings seated around, then in a way we kind of see ourselves like a conduit between these two, and that whatever benefit we receive from the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and all the lineage gurus, then we share with all the sentient beings. Yeah, who have been kind to us in this life and past lives. Mm. So now we recite the prayers. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sukata, knower of the world, supreme guide of humans to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Oh, I think I went too far. No. When supreme amongst humans you are born in this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then I prostrate. With pure bodies, forms supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Savior, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, fateless face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one God to thusness, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community, intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any unwholesome actions. Engage in perfect wholesome actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a defective view, a butter lamp flame, an illusion, a drop, a dewdrop, a water bubble, a dream, lightning, a cloud. See all causative phenomena like this. By these merits may transmigratory beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the enemy of faults, and be freed from the ocean of samsara, disturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. The indescribable, inconceivable, and inexpressible perfection of wisdom, unproduced, unceasing, the nature of space, object of the uniquely knowing transcendental wisdom, to the mother of the victorious ones of the 3 times I prostrate. I prostrate to the 3 noble, rare, sublime ones. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on Mass of Vultures Mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared Tayata Gade Gade Paragade Parasam Gade Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shadadvatiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. So that's the Heart Sutra. I think there's in your readings, your required readings, there's a packet. I think one of them explains the Heart Sutra. Um, I'll have a look again, but maybe in the last, we'll see. Maybe in one of the last sessions we can go through the Heart Sutra and I can explain some of the main parts. So now we recite this extensive dispelling of hindrances according to the Heart Sutra. So in relation to the Heart Sutra, we invoke the blessing of a particular Dakini and request her to, the lion-faced Dakini, request her to help dispel hindrances. I and all surrounding sentient beings take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the Dharma, take refuge in the Sangha. We prostrate to the Great Mother, Prajnaparamita, surrounded by her children, the assemblies of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, In dependence on my prostrations to all of you, may these words of truth be actualized. In the past, the Deva king Indra dispelled the Maras by reflecting on the profound meaning of the wisdom gone beyond and reciting the profound words in daily recitation. In that same way, I also reflect on the profound meaning of the Great Mother Prajnaparamita and recite the profound words and daily recitation. There, that when it says the Great Mother, Prajna Paramita, Prajna means wisdom, and Paramita means perfection. So it's just the Sanskrit for the perfection of wisdom. Prajna means wisdom, Paramita means perfection. And it's called the Great Mother because just like just as a mother can give birth from her womb to beings that um, whose fathers are of different races, right? And therefore, the children can kind of have different kind of different different ethnic identity, be of different ethnicity. Similarly, the wisdom from the wisdom realizing emptiness gives birth to beings of different types of realization in Buddhism according to their different motivations, right? So, a person with the motivation of bodhicitta, then they meditate on emptiness and they achieve full enlightenment. A person with the motivation just to achieve liberation from samsara themselves, they meditate on emptiness and they achieve just mere nirvana, mere liberation from suffering. A person with the motivation to just achieve happiness in a future rebirth, they meditate on emptiness and they achieve a future rebirth. So like that, but they all meditate on emptiness, right? And especially to achieve either nirvana or full enlightenment. And within nirvana, there's hearers and solitary realizers. There's two different levels of realization within that. But they all meditate on emptiness. So in that way, the sutras that teach emptiness are the mother of the perfection of wisdom, and they're the mother in that they give birth to these beings of different levels of realization. Yeah. So also reflect on the profound meaning. So what is this? Sentence there. In the same way, I also reflect on the profound meaning of the Great Mother Prajnaparamita and recite the profound words in daily recitation. May all diseases, spirit possessions, bad conditions, all the negative directions which happen due to past karma and immediate conditions be dispelled. May they become non existent. May they be pacified. And then the prayer to the lion faced Dakini. From the holy supreme realm of Kachara, you who possess powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation, look after practitioners like a mother looks after her children. To the host of Dakinis of the three abodes, I prostrate. Akasamara Sasadara Samaraya Akasamara Sasadara Samaraya. So we say this mantra just under our breath for 21 times. I'll count. Oh. Akasamara Sasadara. Akasamara Sasadara Samaraya Pat Tayata Gade Gade Paragade Parasam Gade Bodhi Soham. By the teachings of the three noble rare sublime ones possessing the power of truth, may hindrances be averted, may they be eliminated, may they be pacified, may all enemies and negative forces opposed to Dharma, Shantim Kuru Soha. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified, may we be free from harmful conditions to Dharma, may all excellences be in accord with the Dharma, and may there be auspiciousness and perfect happiness here right now. Then we'll offer the short mandala offering. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Perfect, pure, holy gurus from the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of the Dharmakaya. Please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dharma upon the earth of those to be subdued exactly as they need. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kandirataya. Yeah, so imagine the Shakyamuni Buddha and all the lineage gurus, and direct gurus receive our praise and the mandala offering and are very pleased, and that they happily agree to assist us in generating wisdom and understanding and all the qualities of the path up to enlightenment. And then we yeah, can recite the refuge and bodhicitta prayer maybe twice in Tibetan today and then once in English. Sangye choran sogi chonam la jangchu bade dani kyabsu chi dagi jensa ge pe zonam ge drola benje sangye dropa sho sangye choran sogi chonam la jangchu bade dani kyabsu chi dagi jensa ge pe zonam ge Drola Banja Sangye Dropa Zhong. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all transmigratory beings. Kongi Tuje Nirsunde, Dawa Tamje Bambe Che, Dambe Duni, Dunsaba, Gautam Dela, Chasala. To he who, in order to dispel all wrong views, compelled by compassion, taught the sacred Dharma to Gautama Buddha, I prostrate. Okay, so let's continue. Um, yeah, okay. I'll show you the slides and then explain how I'm planning to present emptiness over the next these 6 sessions. And then we'll start going through some introductory kind of material, and we'll definitely meditate, do some meditation before 8:30. Okay. Mm. So here's the slides. Um, the color for this module is deep blue because, yeah, because oftentimes actually this color blue here, I don't think you have on the wall here. Here on the medicine Buddhas, they have a light blue behind them. But oftentimes the background of the field of merit is, or the field of refuge, either one is depicted as deep blue, dark blue. Lama Zopa Rinpoche was quite particular about that. Um,
Why
because,
is that? Is that because of the sky?
yes, that's what I'm coming to, Madhu. Is, yeah. Well, it's partly the sky. Yeah, it's, um, but because, I mean, the sky is also a symbol, right? Think of in the deep blue, like in autumn, like this time of the year. Especially in India, in autumn. Autumn is the time when the sky is the most clear because it's after the monsoon, because the monsoon rains settle the dust out of the air, and so the sky is very clear in autumn. But here also, I think, and then imagine a cloudless day, and when there's the sky is just full blue sky, and at the zenith, it's very deep blue. Um, there's the idea that I guess is the idea that that's kind of a symbol of the ultimate nature of phenomena from which everything arises, right? Just like in the blue sky, imagine that the sun arises and the moon arises, and then when the sun sets, the stars arise, the clouds arise. Everything is kind of the idea that everything arises. It's the idea of the space, the symbol of space, in which makes the possibility of things arising. In the same way, emptiness, the fact that everything is empty of existing from its own side, allows for interrelationship of things. And that interconnection of things makes the possible the arising of all things, right? Conversely, sometimes, imagine if there was, everything was just filled with matter, like in a material way, like dense matter. Um, Even imagine, like at the center of a black hole is said to be, some of the most dense matter that exists in the universe because the gravity of a collapsed star. I mean, the matter of a collapsed star, when the star burns out, it collapses upon itself. And due to the huge amount of gravity, it becomes this incredibly dense matter. It's said that if you had like a spoonful of that and then you dropped it on Earth, it would go directly to the center of the Earth. It would be the density of the earth would be like water or something. It would just like it'd be like putting metal in water, a metal ball in water. It would just go straight through. But imagine if everything, like if the entire universe as we know it was filled with dense matter like that. Nothing could move essentially, and so nothing could arise. You wouldn't have life, you wouldn't have plants, you wouldn't have light, you wouldn't have anything essentially. Um, so I mean, the idea of the sky is the emptiness of things. Just like in terms of, the lack of matter in the universe and the great space between them allows the interaction of matter in a more profound way. The lack of things existing by their own power or independently from their own side makes possible the interaction of things. Just like now, like, well, this is becoming, maybe I'll save this for later. It's becoming too big of a, oh, we lost the Zoom again. Anyway, okay, we're back. Anyway, so yeah, sorry to digress so much, but yeah, so the blue is often depicted as the color. It's the color that's typically in the back of an altar or a merit field to symbolize that all of the figures of the merit field, the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha and all the different gods and goddesses and deities and bodhisattvas, they all arise from emptiness and they absorb back into emptiness, right? Just as everything does. Because there'd be a tendency to grasp it, oh, well, the Buddha is enlightened, so he must be real from his own side, more real. But the Buddha also is a dependent arising. He also arises from causes and conditions and also kind of merges back into emptiness in a way. Um, anyway, that's kind of the symbolism of the deep blue. So yeah, it's considered a symbol of emptiness. Okay, so the wisdom of emptiness, discovering Buddhism module number 12. And so we have 6 sessions, and I'll kind of divide up into present under 6 headings. Today, introduction, and probably a little bit next week we'll continue with that. And then identifying, yeah, what is to be negated versus dependent arising. So when we say empty, empty of what, right? Not empty of like, elephants or empty of matter or empty of, suffering. It's empty of something particular, right? So to understand emptiness, first we have to understand, well, what is it that's being negated by the word empty? Empty. Yeah, empty of what? And then selflessness of persons and selflessness of phenomena. So yeah, selflessness and emptiness are more or less synonyms. Um, but and there you already get a hint empty of what? Empty of a self, but not any self, a particular type of self, right? It's not that there is no person, there is no self. There is a self of things. There's a self of us, a self of things. Actually, self is a synonym with person, but it's emptiness of a particular kind of. It's basically an independent self, something existing in and of itself or from its own side. So there's a quality of that possessed by persons, and that quality of that ultimate nature possessed by things other than persons is what's meant by phenomena. Yeah. And then there's a huge correlation. There's many parallels between ideas in quantum mechanics and emptiness. So in one session we'll look at that, and then we'll summarize and review, and hopefully fit in the explanation of the Heart Sutra. Okay, so that's what we'll go through. So then, introduction, what we're looking at today, and present under 3 headings. So first, just kind of, well, why study or contemplate or meditate on emptiness? Why is emptiness important? And then in the Lamrim outlines that many of you are, I'm sure, familiar with, where does emptiness come up? And then how to begin? Like when we start studying emptiness, then what are kind of, how do we lay the groundwork and begin doing that? What are some things that are important at the beginning? Okay, so then within, thinking about, well, why study emptiness? Then there's, yeah, typically five main reasons given, and we'll speak a bit about each of these. So the first is, um, it's as I was speaking about earlier. It's the only antidote for all the disturbing emotions, right? Whereas anger has particular antidotes. Like particular antidotes for anger are patience or loving kindness. But like patience and loving kindness, they're not antidotes for other afflictive emotions like anger or low self-esteem or jealousy or pride, right? Um, and then, oh, sorry, they're not antidotes for other afflictive emotions like attachment. I think I said anger. So, like the specific antidotes for anger are not antidotes for attachment. The specific antidotes for attachment, like thinking about the unpleasant aspects of phenomena, or thinking about how the things we're attached to haven't fundamentally given us deep satisfaction in the past, but rather lead us into craving those things again. That way of thinking is not an antidote to anger, and so forth. So, whereas meditation on emptiness, because it's addressing the idea we have about ourself and how that gives rise to being angry or being attached or having low self-esteem or having arrogant pride. Like all of the afflictive emotions arise from a distorted way of viewing ourself, generally an exaggerated sense of the importance of ourself, and that arises from grasping at a concrete idea of a self, which is a misconception, right? So meditation on emptiness is important, very important, because ultimately it's the only antidote to all the afflictive emotions. And then in second, and then number two, it counteracts the root cause of all suffering. So it's the only antidote to the very root cause. So think of all of our afflictive emotions are like branches of a tree, right? You can cut off different branches, but as long as you don't cut the tree from the root, they keep growing again. I mean, this kind of tree, right? Like many kind of trees, the branches keep growing again. So to really, make it so that anger never arises again, arrogant pride never arises again, low self-esteem never is a problem for us again. We have to identify what's the root cause, the root source of all those afflictive emotions, and use an antidote that eliminates that. And meditation on emptiness is the only antidote for that. So finally, in the Buddhist view, to ultimately achieve nirvana, total freedom, irreversible freedom from all suffering, then we have to meditate on emptiness or selflessness. So it's the only antidote that counteracts the root cause of all suffering. And then three, it purifies the mind and generates wisdom knowing reality. So this is the idea that because, I mean, basically like all our mind, why is our mind impure in a way, right? Why is our mind clouded with confusion and distortion and distorted ideas and wrong ideas? It's because we're out of touch with reality, just of the way we are, the way others are. We're disconnected from reality. So we have wrong ideas about how things really exist and how things work. And there's different aspects of reality, right? There's different levels of reality. Like if I throw this mala up, it'll come down. That's part of reality, you know. Like that there's light in the room here, and there's darkness outside the room, or more darkness outside the room. That's there's different. That some food tastes sweet, some taste sour, some actions are virtuous, some actions are non-virtuous. Um, there's all different. These are all different aspects of reality. But emptiness is about the most fundamental nature of reality, and it's an meditation on emptiness is an antidote, therefore, for the most fundamental distorted ideas, wrong ideas we have about reality, right? So, um, so by meditating on emptiness, it's the most powerful purification of our minds because it purifies this very deep, distorted understanding, distorted perception that we have of reality. and thereby it powerfully purifies the mind. Um, yeah, and that's part of the reason it's difficult because it it causes powerful purification of the mind. Um, yeah, so it purifies the mind and generates wisdom and knowing reality, and so generates this very powerful wisdom. Um, yeah. And so ultimately, I think meditation and emptiness, when it's something that goes well, it's a source of incredible joy, right? It's not just hard work, but it becomes something incredibly blissful and joyful. For This is how all past masters have attained liberation and enlightenment. So in the yeah in Buddhism, like every Buddhist master of the past, from Shakyamuni Buddha and before on down to now, they've all they've all meditated on emptiness as a primary thing. It's like the essence of the path. I mean, the essence of the path has two. There's a method side and a wisdom side, but the wisdom side is emptiness. Um, so whatever Buddhist master, whether in the Theravada tradition or the Chinese or the Zen tradition, the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, no matter any follower of the Buddha who's achieved realization, they've all meditated on emptiness without a doubt. Um, and therefore, if we also want to generate, if we see those beings as models that we ourselves would like to emulate, to be like that. If we've met like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and think, oh, I'd like to be like that, then we have to meditate on emptiness in addition to compassion and other aspects of the path. And then finally, this is ultimately the best way to help others. I'm saying finally, but actually this is just a list of the reasons. And then I think I have slides on each of them. So yeah, but yeah, but anyway, I don't, but not all of them. So yeah, ultimately it's the best. So yeah, I want to elaborate this. So ultimately it's the best way to help others. Well, actually, I'll come back to it because we're yeah, we'll go, I mean, it'll come up again. But in short, the idea here is that just as we want to be free from suffering, and what the Buddha is teaching in all the Perfection of Wisdom sutras is that if you want to be free from suffering in such a way that it never arises again, then meditate on emptiness. Similarly, countless other beings that we care about in this life and that we've cared about in past lives, or that have been very dear to us in past lives, or we've been very close to. So other sentient beings, countless other sentient beings, they suffer just in the way we do. So if we genuinely want to benefit them and want to enable them to be free from suffering in a way that it never returns again, then we have to teach them how to meditate on emptiness, right? To do that, we ourselves have to do the same, right? So ultimately, you know, um, yes, we can benefit others in many different ways by offering, just offering an ear, being a good friend, um, just speaking with them, listening to their problems, helping them talk through difficulties, just spending time doing things, enjoying, offering a meal, sharing time with, helping out with different, work they have to do or something, giving them a place to stay, with medicine, with money. So there's many different ways to help others, even by giving others education, by giving those medical care, by giving others a home and so forth. Um, even by sharing the Dharma with others. But but none of those things. It's just like all of the other antidotes to afflictive emotions. They can never uproot suffering. They can never eliminate suffering from the root. Similarly, other ways we benefit sentient beings, yes, they're excellent and they are beneficial, but they can never um, enable beings to be free from suffering, you know, without forever, right? To be fundamentally free from suffering forever in a way emptiness can. So ultimately, emptiness is the best way to help others like that. Okay, so now so why is emptiness, and then I'll support with some quotations. First, like how is emptiness counteracts the root of all suffering. So why is that? First of all, what is the root of suffering, and therefore of samsara? And then why is it that emptiness counteracts that root, right? So there's this famous quotation, and this verse from Nagarjuna. This is one that His Holiness encourages his followers to meditate on every day. So we'll look at the verse first, and then I'll explain this bit above. But Nagarjuna says in the Fundamental Wisdom of the Middle Way, chapter 18, um, by exhausting karma and afflictive emotions, one is liberated. Karma and afflictive emotions come from false conceptions. Those, those false conceptions come from elaboration, means elaboration of inherent existence. As for elaboration, it is ceased by emptiness, or it is ceased in emptiness. The Sanskrit can be read in two different ways of that. So yeah, so Nagarjuna there, and the first line he's just saying, well, what does it mean to be free from samsara? He says by exhausting. So nirvana, what is nirvana in a sense? What is freedom from suffering? What is nirvana? He says by exhausting karma and afflictive emotions, one is liberated. So to be liberated means to have achieved nirvana, means to be free from suffering in a way that it would never return, right? And that's a big idea. And I'm not sure how, each of you kind of relate to that. There might be questions about that, but that's the kind of Buddhist idea. So how do we achieve liberation from samsara? By exhausting or eliminating karma and afflictive emotions. So then the idea is, well, the question is, well, how do you do that, right? How do you eliminate karma and afflictive emotions? Where do they come from? So then he explains, karma and afflictive emotions come from false conceptions, or also known as, you can say false conceptions, or I think I wrote here inaccurate concepts, or like misbeliefs, misbelieving ideas, wrong ideas, basically. Um, and here the wrong ideas are, for example, let me give you a simple example, like um, like something that we're attached to. Like say we're attached to a particular food. I always use example of some particular food. Um, and yeah, I was surprised last time. I'm gonna do a survey again actually now with you all. I was surprised last time when I asked, people answered in a way I totally didn't expect. So um, yeah, think of a favorite food that you have that you really like a comfort food, or some food that you really like. And then think what you enjoy about it, right? What to you is delicious about that food? What is most pleasant about it? Is it the taste? Is it the texture, the appearance, the smell? And then think that, um, that the what is that thing that's delicious about the food, or those things that you find delicious about the food, to your mind, does it appear like those that deliciousness is a property of the food, or that it's something that comes from the side of your mind? We'll just check that. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to raise your hands. So for you that think it seems like it comes, that deliciousness is from the side of the food, raise your hand. Nobody. Oh, see. And those that think the deliciousness is from the side of your mind, raise your hand. Oh yeah, most of you think it's from the side of the mind. Okay, all right. Anyway, so now it makes anyway. I'll explain regardless. But see what here it's saying. Maybe none of you have false concepts. Like you're all free from false concepts already. No, but an example. So yeah, this is my favorite example. Maybe I have to look for a different example also. But I have a backup example just in case this one doesn't work for you. But the idea here, an example of a false concept. So when you think of a food that you find delicious, that the perception that the deliciousness exists, that the deliciousness you experience exists from the side of the food, right? That the deliciousness that you experience is on the food itself. And so, and if that was true, then it would mean that everyone who tasted that food that you like, they would equally find it delicious, right? Because the deliciousness is a property of the food. But of course, that's not the case, right? Um, so maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I should take a survey about this, but maybe there's not really much time now, so we'll skip it. But another classic example, which I think maybe is a bit more uh, helpful, is in relation to a person. When we're really infatuated with another person, right? Think when you're a teenager, or or afterwards, if you're lucky. and and yeah, when you're infatuated with another person such that you see them as very attractive, right? Either physically or just mentally. It doesn't have to be physical attraction. It can be just emotionally you find them very attractive. But um, and then is it the case that the person appears to be attractive from their own side? Not that that's just your perception of them, not a projection of your ideas, but they're from their own side, right? So the idea of, again, a false concept is that we distort things in such that things that we find as attractive, we see those things as being attractive as a property that's inherent to that thing itself, right? Not as something that it's just our perception, but it's a quality of the thing itself from the side of the object. Just it's just a reality of the object. And that's a distortion, right? Because it's not. That experience of deliciousness is a meeting of our own tastes and likes and dislikes with a certain set of flavors, and then that's a dependent arising upon would we experience deliciousness, right? It's not really a property of the food, or and the same with a person. Like if that person was as attractive as we find them, then everybody would see them in that way if that was really their nature. But that's not the case. Everybody has different tastes. So this idea of so it's saying karma and afflictive emotions, so come from false concepts. So how is it that afflictive emotions come from false concepts? Is because to some things we experience as attractive due to as a result of our own karma. We experience as attractive, but then we grasp at those things as if they truly are attractive from their own side. And thereby by having them, I will be made happy, right? I'll be happy if I have that thing. And that's a wrong idea, right? So that wrong idea of thinking that that thing is attractive from its own side then leads to attachment to that and grasping at that. So that's how, and then the same on the other side of the scale. That when we see, like again, maybe think of a person is a bit easier. When we see some people as kind of abhorrent or bad or unattractive, unpleasant for some way, for some reason, then we see that as being not just our opinion of them, not just the way we experience them or we perceive them, but truly how they are, right, from their own side. And then that leads into aversion towards them and anger towards them, right? So in that way, um, the afflictive emotions arise from false concepts, right? And then because we have attachment to one or anger another, then we engage in non-virtuous actions. We create non-virtuous karma. We lie or steal or even kill, um, or just belittle or slander, all kinds of things. So most of the and we can check. We have to check these things in our own experience. Is it true that all the harmful things I've done have been motivated by a disturbing emotion, some type of anger or attachment or selfish concern, um, or all the others, right? So that's how these work. So karma and afflictive emotions come from false conceptions. And then the question, well, where do false conceptions come from? Is there a deeper source of those? So he says those come from, meaning false conceptions, come from elaboration. And here, elaboration is a bit of a vague term, but it means the idea is that, and Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to use this term a lot, actually. Not many teachers do, but it's the idea that our mind, it well, basically, it projects something onto another. It elaborates. It's kind of like the way elaboration is used here is like imagine you have a very simple like old wooden dining table in your dining room, right? A very simple old like stained wooden table in your dining room, and you're going to have a dinner party. A nice guest come over, so you put a really nice tablecloth over it. You cover it with a tablecloth. You elaborate the table. Is that kind of meaning? Like you make it something appear something that it's not. by putting a cover over it. Um, I mean, you can also use elaborate speech to sort of hide what you're actually saying. And people do that when they're asked about something and they're actually, like, oh, what do you think of my painting or something? Or what do you think of my new car or something? And you don't particularly like it. Instead of just saying that, because it'd be hurtful to the person's feelings, you elaborate a bit. You kind of beat around the bush. You say a bit vague and maybe interesting things so that you don't really have to say what you actually think. In that way, it's a kind of projection onto a projection of an appearance that's not real, right? That disguises reality, right? So he's saying the false conceptions come from elaboration, and here, what is it? Elaboration of inherent existence, right? Which means that we like so think back to the example of like a food or a person that we see as very attractive, and there's a perception of the attractiveness being a property of the thing from their own side. Well, where does that come from? Like, why do we do that? In one hand, because we we leave aside whether we perceive as attractive or unattractive, we grasp at that person existing from their own side, having their own independent identity, and thereby being a base for attractiveness or unattractiveness and those other qualities. And we also, so like the food, we think we perceive that the food itself exists from its own side as an independent kind of and unitary or solitary kind of thing. And then upon that, we add, good or bad, I like or don't like, or attractive or unattractive, delicious or disgusting, right? So there's a more fundamental kind of grasping at things existing from their own side, and then upon that, then we further add other properties. So, yeah. If that's not totally clear right now, don't be surprised, because that's what we're working on. This whole module is understanding that most fundamental kind of elaboration of inherent existence, right? So, and then he says, as for elaboration, so how do you cease this? It's ceased by emptiness, by meditating on emptiness, or ceased in emptiness is another way. Yeah. If you say, I mean, to the Sanskrit, the reason the Sanskrit reads two different ways, I don't understand Sanskrit well, but this is as taught by one of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama's teachers, Kunu Lama Tenzin Gyaltsen, who was from northern India, the Kunu Valley in North India. It's in the state of Himachal Pradesh. But he was a great Sanskrit scholar and also a great scholar in Tibetan Buddhism. He went to Tibet and studied for many years. But it's his explanation that this last line of this verse, the shloka, it can read in both ways, because if you, the meaning that um, afflictive emotions and then the false concepts and the ignorance from which they arise, they're ceased by emptiness, refers to the truth of the path of the Four Noble Truths. But it's by meditating on the truth of the path, the truth of the path, which is an actual act to eliminate emptiness. I mean, eliminate ignorance. So to say it is ceased by emptiness refers to the truth of the path. To say it's ceased in emptiness refers to the truth of cessation of the Four Noble Truths. So I know maybe for some of you this not doesn't make sense, but for those who've been studying the whole course, they should be understanding. They should know that they should know the Four Noble Truths. I think there's a whole module on the Four Noble Truths. Is there? Yeah. Okay. Leah's saying in the back. So if you say it is ceased in emptiness, it refers to the truth of cessation, um, because the truth of cessation is essentially um, um, a person's mind from which ignorance has been eliminated, right? So you think of our mind. Now we have this fundamental kind of ignorance or misunderstanding in our mind. So as we meditate on wisdom, and the wisdom of emptiness, then different degrees of that are gradually eliminated, and the seeds of those eliminated. And so that quality of eliminating that ignorance, the progressively greater absence of this fundamental ignorance in our mind is a quality of our mind. It's a property of the mind. So just as ignorance has arisen as a quality of our mind, as a property of our mind, then when ignorance is eliminated, that elimination of it is also a property of the mind. And that elimination of ignorance within our mind is the cessation, is the truth of cessation. And so it's like the ignorance is ceases in emptiness. It's because we it's like we create an awareness of emptiness in our mind, and within that very space itself, ignorance can no longer exist. Just like if you turn on a light in a room, darkness, which was there before, it can no longer exist in that room. It's eliminated in the very same place. It's not like the darkness goes somewhere else, like it just flows outside and it's waiting to flow back in. Now, it's the darkness is just eliminated in its own place, right? So, like that. Then, yeah. Then, by meditating on emptiness, yeah. And now I hope that's a bit meditative because we don't have much time to meditate now. And I'm sorry, I had my eyes closed, and it looks like the Zoom link cut out, I think, because I'm not sharing anymore. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Sorry for the technical glitch. Okay, let's do a little meditation now, and then we'll pick up from where we left off next week. I think I mean, usually I send out homework questions, although last module I didn't, but this module I will. But since we haven't gone through much this today, so I won't send out any questions. But if you have time to spend on the homework, just do some of the readings from the required readings. Okay, but let's meditate now just for a few minutes. And gradually gather your awareness within. And come back to your breath or another object of meditation, a placement meditation. Mm. So we'll do a meditation in three short steps according to our time. So the first step is asking oneself. So we'll look through all the parts of your body gradually, and so like begin at your, wherever you like, but say imagine beginning your head. You can look at your crown of the head, your scalp, and then the skull, and different parts of the skull, different parts of the brain, in relation to each part of your body, and then scan through. So scan through all the parts of your body in relation to each part of your body. Ask the question: Is this me? Right? Is this I? Not is this part of me? Like yes, those are all parts of you, but is this the I who possesses all the parts of my body? We say like my body, my head, my nose, my hands, my arms. But that I was the possessor. So the larger question is, where is that I? But begin with just looking through the parts of the body. In relation to each part of your body, ask, is this I? Is this me? Mhm. And then the next step, look through the different parts of your mind, your conscious experience, your thoughts, your perceptions of, sounds, smell, taste, physical sensations, memories, whatever appears in your mind in the present moment. Ask the same question, is this I? Like we talk about my mind, my thoughts, my feelings, but whose? Where is that I? So in relation to these all the different mental experiences, ask this question, is this the I? Who's the possessor of the body and mind? Mm. And then finally, imagine you dissolve into space. So just like if you blow your breath on a mirror, then there's a circle of condensed moisture of your breath on the mirror, and then it gradually, as it um, as it dries from the periphery to the center, it gradually um, disappears, dissipates, and then becomes completely absent. So like that, imagine from your front and back, your left and right, top and bottom, that you gradually dissolve into space and completely merge with space. Mm. Okay, so relax your attention there. Well, we're out of time for the session tonight. Let's just briefly dedicate the force of whatever merit we've generated. May the Buddha's teachings flourish in the world now and for a long time. Mm. May ourselves and other sentient beings develop wisdom and compassion more and more, and especially be able to uproot the fundamental causes of suffering. And then bring to mind any other prayers you'd like to make. Mm. So may all those prayers be accomplished in accordance with your virtuous intentions. Okay, thank you, and enjoy your week. Try to meditate a little bit on emptiness. No, do some of the readings. Meditate a bit. Bye bye.
Geshe-la,
Geshe, can I ask one question
Sure.
on that meditation then? But once we disappear, it gets scary. Do we come back?
Of course. Yeah. Now you're back.
I know I'm back, but it felt
Um,
very scary.
um, yeah. In the meditation, if it feels scary, that's quite good, actually. That's a sign that it's transforming your mind. No. But yes, at the end, if it feels scary, remember, you can think, do I exist? Right? There's someone who is asking, who's meditating? You ask. Remind yourself that you are there meditating. You're having that experience. You're not disappearing, right? I mean, check what the fear is about. Usually for people, it's the fear of that I'm going to cease to exist,
Hmm.
right? So if that is the fear, then remind yourself of a reason that appears clearly to yourself why you do exist, right? And the most immediate reason is because, well, I'm sitting here feeling afraid that I'm afraid, right? I'm feeling fear now, but like that. But there's not typically when that meditation is described, there's not a common way of uh, visualizing to come back, right? But rather just to arise from the meditation, right? Um, just
Geshe-la,
come back to your ordinary awareness, right? Just let go of that meditation and come back to your sense of your body on the cushion and your remembrance of what you're doing and what you're going to do. In other words, yeah,
Okay, I'll try. Thank
I
you.
I had a question, Geshe-la.
sure. Or if you
The
want,
beginning of the meditation, you had us question on who am I, and I started thinking about what values I stand for and what roles I play in life, sister, daughter, wife, mother, and so on. And then when you asked about my dissolution into nothingness. It just like Asha, it was scary in that everything dissolves, like the notion of values dissolve and the notion of roles and who you are and this body even dissolves into nothingness. Is that how it feels for everyone?
I don't know, but we'll discuss all this later. No, but that's kind of it's going towards nihilism because a big danger in meditating on emptiness is you go into nihilism. So it's not that there are no values or no identification or something, uh,
Mm.
but it's good that I mean, in a very short time, you seem to have very strong experience. So that's good, but conventional reality exists. The reality of being a person, being a mother, being a daughter, being a friend, sitting here talking on Zoom.
Mm.
It's not that this doesn't exist, right? Yeah. But the question is, well, how does it exist? It doesn't exist in the way it appears ordinarily. How does
But
it?
if the existence happens because of interdependence, does interdependence not exist?
Yeah, of course, interdependence exists, but we'll carry on next week.
It's too much suspense.
Good. Okay. Bye bye, everyone.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.